Good morning. It is another Sunday at Cold Garden Distillery and it is raining and gloomy and I'm very tired. And today what we're gonna do is take you on a little bit of a farm tour because I don't think we've really shown you the context of this whole place yet. If you enjoy this, remember to hit like and subscribe, and here we go on a farm tour. So this is the barn that the distillery is in, and as you can hopefully hear and see, you got some big old doors. And this is the top floor of the distillery building. The distillery itself is over on that side. That's grain that's gonna end up in whiskey.
600 pounds of barley, which will end up in a whiskey that we're trying to make that will taste a little bit like Scotch. We'll be using a highly peated malt to mix with that barley. Let's see, it's a post and beam barn that's well over close to 200 years old. It was moved and reassembled here by our friend Steve Fifield. It came from New Hampton, New Hampshire, which is up near between Ashland and Plymouth. What else? Shall we go down to the distillery?
Yeah, let's go down to the distillery. So, if you've been here, then you know that this is our composting toilet over here.
Do you want an inside view?
An inside view of the composting toilet? I do not. I do not want an inside view of the composting toilet.
This is an antique corn shelter. It takes the corn kernels off the cob. There's a hand crank to run it on this side, and you can run it off a belt drive on this side. And it's all October will be corn shelling season.
So maybe we'll get the guys over at Sanborn Mills Farm to run some of their corn through that.
They want to hook it up to antique gasoline engine. Some of the first gas engines, internal combustion engines were made for driving industrial equipment. They were called one-lungers because they'd have one cylinder, and they'd be like 1.5 horsepower or 3 horsepower.
So this is the distillery. I hope you've been here to see it. If you haven't, definitely come by. This is our new little bartending station over here.
This is the mill where we grind grain. If it isn't being ground on the water-powered mill over at Sanborn Mills Farm, we grind it here. These tanks are for fermenting fruit. We'll put in a lot of apple juice, and then we'll mix in quince or kiwi or pear or peach and ferment. We ferment them at a low temperature, about 55 to 60 degrees. And we ferment them for 2 months to 5 months, a long time. We've got some product in barrel over there, brandy on the bottom row, bourbon on the top row.
It's our little sales room. And in here is the distillery, I guess, workspace. Foosball table for the children. Let's see, this is a little experiment that we're doing with Haskaps. We're working on various infusions with brandies to see what's good.
So we've done sour cherry that's worked out really well from sour cherries we grew here on the farm. We grew these Haskaps. This is the third, we planted the Haskaps about 3 years ago, and this is the first year we've got a crop off them. And last year we did some blackberry, or was it black raspberry? I don't know, we'll have to ask the master gardener. But the infused brandies are coming out very well and are quite popular.
Bottling station, which you've probably seen if you follow this channel. This is our little foil turner over there, and our labeler. And then also, if you follow this channel, you'll be familiar with our barrel room and the barrel racks in them. This is a barrel full of bourbon that had been full of maple syrup. So this is going to be our bourbon maple, our next batch of bourbon maple. Then we've got whiskey on this side, brandy on this side. We're getting into a system where we're going to start transferring barrel to barrel instead of having to remove a barrel and put a new barrel in every single time we do new stuff.
They call that a Solera system. So this is a European oak barrel, which is traditionally 59 gallons. This is an American oak barrel. The American barrels are traditionally 53 gallons. You can see the slight difference in size. Up on top there we have some 30-gallon barrels. These are an experiment we're doing. They're acacia wood, which has a much more delicate flavor. So we're aging some brandy in there. It's kind of a floral flavor, and they don't have nearly as much tannin, so you don't get an over-oaked flavor in your spirit.
The other cool thing about the spirit that's in there right now is that it's 90%, 80% peach or something like that, and then the rest is apricot. Peach brandy is what you read about in all the pre-prohibition cocktail guides, and we're thinking about maybe trying a 100% peach brandy so that people can really make those pre-prohibition cocktails with the correct ingredient. So if that's a thing that you want, let us know, because we're not sure if we're going to do it or not. It might not be worth the time and the effort and the crop, but if there's interest, we definitely will. So definitely let us know.
All right. Oh, do you want to go to the building?
Yeah.
Let's go. The boiler. Oh, we didn't talk about the still and the mash tank. Do you want to do that?
No, let's do a different video on the still and the mash tank.
Okay.
Different video on the still and the mash tank.
So this is another building that was moved here by our friend Steve Fifield. This was one time a blacksmith shop in Chichester, New Hampshire. I'm wrong, Dunbarton, New Hampshire. The interesting thing about this construction is it's what's called gun stock posts. So they're wider at the top than the bottom. And they're milled out from the tree. So the tree is wider at the base. So this is upside down from how it grew. The framing in this is actually American chestnut, which is a species now almost extinct because of the chestnut blight. You can see up there the sign, Dunbarton Blacksmith Shop. And in the basement we have the boiler that powers our, provides steam for the mash tank and the still.
And I'm also trying to talk him into turning this into the tasting room for the future.
Yes.
But we're probably a couple years from that.
Yeah. Maybe next year.
Maybe next year?
Maybe next summer.
You heard it here first. We'll have to put in real steps.
Let's see, you wanted to show the expansive field, and this is our outdoor seating area. It's all a little wet today, but it's really pleasant. I guess we have to put up some sort of awning because sometimes when the sun is beating down here, it's really pretty warm.
Well, we could sell the stove that we're about to finish restoring, and we could
stove.
move the forklift, and then we'd have some more space under here.
Right, and so this could be for when it's raining. This is a Viking range. It has 4 burners, 2 there, 2 there. It has a grill. It has a griddle, and it has 2 ovens. It has the warming rack and the oven vents out through the top. It's really quite a sophisticated beast. We had it in the kitchen for many years, and as we started to downsize a little bit from the family and Hillary not doing so much cooking, we switched out to a smaller model. So it's on the market.
If you want it, let us know. We'll put in an offer. So all these fields are old shaker fields, which is pretty interesting. Along the edges you get all these stone walls, like the one that we cleared off in one of the previous videos. And then you can see there's all these fields in the woods that are demarked by the stone walls. So there's trees there now, but they were fields, or at least they were silver pasture.
Yeah, they were used for grazing. Most of the trees were cut out of them. There'd be an occasional tree, but they were never really had rocks pulled out, so they were never done what they call arable land. It was never really plowed or cultivated. It was used for grazing.
So I think now we're gonna hop in the truck and we're gonna go show you the other side of the road. Oh my God, it smells like a dog in here.
Actually, it's mostly mothballs that smell.
Great. So it's the other side of the road, the side that we live on. So there's a bunch of cool things over here. One is the big brick house that you can barely see through the kiwis. But that's the brick house. It was a Shaker building. There used to be a Shaker village here, all up in that field back there. And it's the last remaining building from that time period. So tell us about the gardens.
Well, let me say something about the brick house there. The Shakers dug the clay to make the bricks down on the brook. They formed the bricks, they built kilns and baked the bricks, and lugged them all up here to build the house. And they built this whole house in like 3 months. They had 60 people working on it.
Industrious.
And in the bricklaying pattern, you can see they had different masons working on different parts of it. So the bricklaying pattern is slightly different on the front than on the back.
Well, wasn't the story that there were two brothers who were in charge of either side and they couldn't agree and they didn't like each other very much, so they built it in specifically different ways?
Right.
Yeah.
Shaker brothers,
brothers.
Not fraternal brothers or not blood brothers. Here's kiwi. The kiwi crop is coming in there. They won't be ripe until October, end of September, October, but we have a very nice crop set up this year.
And these are northern kiwis, so they don't get too much bigger than this. They maybe get another half inch or so bigger.
Yeah, or almost an inch. They're like a giant grape. And they don't get fuzzy on the outside. So you can pop in your mouth like a grape and they taste just like kiwis.
They're great. So the other interesting thing about kiwis is that you require a male and a female kiwi in order to propagate. So we have different plants that are male and female, and the males don't produce fruit, the females do produce fruit. So that's one way you can tell the difference.
The only way I can tell the difference, it's really hard to tell them when they're not. So this is the black raspberries that we infused. There are a few of them. We picked most of them, but now they're mushy because of the rain. But when we have a heavy crop, we put netting over it to keep the birds off it.
And there's some rhubarb down there too.
Mm-hmm.
Rhubarb for rhubarb spritzes.
This is really small because we had to redo the edge of the wall here, and the plant got pulled out and then put back in. So
somebody hit the edge of the wall with a tractor.
Mm-hmm. Somebody.
So this is one of Mom's many gardens. I think it's mostly got flowers in it this year for my wedding.
That's right.
My wedding. But often, maybe there's a tomatillo in there.
There's tomato.
So she's got some tomatoes in there. Often this is like brassicas and stuff. But this is far from her only garden, and she divides them up into...
The peas are gone by. But here's the rhubarb. This is what the rhubarb usually looks like.
Like a giant lily pad.
You can use it for a umbrella.
Those solar panels over there are ours. They power part of the distillery.
They give us most of the electricity we need for both the house and the distillery.
We do try to be environmentally friendly. You'll be familiar with this tree from pruning videos, hopefully. If you aren't, go watch the pruning videos.
Right, a lot of fruit trees are biannual, meaning they produce fruit every other year. So there's only like half a dozen pairs on that.
And chestnut tree up there.
Oh, let's show them those little tiny birds. So these are called catkins. It's part of the reproductive process. The pollen comes off this and fertilizes the flower that produces. These guys are the little tiny chestnuts. So these will become big burrs, like the size of a tennis ball, and there'll be nice chestnuts inside them. These are Chinese chestnuts, which my dad actually planted this tree in the 1950s. And people planted a lot of them because the American chestnut had been wiped out.
So over here we've got another one of Mom's gardens. Again, a lot of it is flowers this year, but you can see there's asparagus in there.
There's weeds in there.
Weeds. And then this is the homestead orchard, which we've toured you through before. But we'll take a walk anyway because it's kind of cool right now because we've got some fruit on some stuff. Yes, so that's exciting.
So this is a variety of peach called Reliance peach. It was bred at University of New Hampshire in their experimental orchards by Alwyn Meader. I think his first name was Alwyn. So there's enough peaches on here to make a good bit of peach syrup, which we use in our cocktails.
Let's see, what else do we have here? We've got young Greg and other Greg and Sprout Greg.
Little cherry trees.
Who are doing well. The birds ate all of our cherries.
Yes.
Again.
Cherries this year. There's some quince here. Quince is a palm fruit, so it is also susceptible to fire blight.
It's fuzzy.
But, yeah, it is fuzzy, which is a really good thing because one of the pests we have in the orchard is called plum curculio. It's a little bug that bites and lays an egg in the fruit, but they don't like the fuzziness, so they don't bother the quince.
Mom's greenhouse, which is mostly full of tomatoes and peppers. Ooh, these are
our grafted apples. So because of fire blight, we've got a bunch of, there's rootstock, which provides certain characteristics for your apple tree. One of the primary things it does is gives you control of the vigor. So there are different sizes. There's standard, which is a big apple tree. There's dwarf, which is a really little, and then there's semi-dwarf, and then there's something between semi-dwarf and standard. That's what these are. They're supposed to be about 80% of a standard tree. Then there's what's called the cultivar, which is grafted onto the rootstock. Oh, the rootstock can also give you some disease resistant. So we got fire blight resistant rootstock, and then we selected fire blight resistant cultivars. And what do we got here? Williams Pride, Dabinet. This is a French apple that seems to be doing quite well. This is called cedar apple rust. Again, it's not really a serious problem. It's interesting because it needs a co-host. It grows on the cedar trees. Oh, with it being wet, we'll be able to see that. This is Ashmed's Kernel. This is a heirloom apple. This one has done really, really well. The graft was right here. You can see that. Sort of. See, it was a cleft graft. There's a V shape there. And then the black on here is a product we paint on there called Tree Coat that helps prevent moisture loss from the cyanwood. The cultivar is called the cyanwood. It's grafted on there. That's one that didn't take. This one, the graft didn't live. But out of 18, we got 16 that lived. which is a very good percentage.
Right, those are the ones that we did a video about potting rootstock.
This is called Carpathian walnut. It's a kind of walnut from the Carpathian Mountains. And you see, we have quite a few walnuts this year. We were having a really serious problem that prevented us from getting any fruit on these. It was called some kind of walnut tip borer. I think it's actually a wasp that lays an egg that then makes a little worm that drills right back in through the terminal bud. That's called the terminal bud, where it grows. Yeah,
actually, you can see it right here.
Yeah, this is from a previous year. So this is this year's wood from here out. This is last year's wood, and this was the year before, and this is. But because I mentioned plum curculio, to control plum curculio in an organic fashion, we spray kaolin, which is clay. It's the same kind of clay they make pots out of and plates out of. But it puts a white film on the outside of the little tiny fruit. And it's just like the quince being fuzzy. The film of clay on the outside, the plum curculio doesn't like it. So they don't bite the fruit. It can be plum curculio, they can bite every single fruit and lay an egg in every single fruit, and then the fruit all drops off and you don't have any crop. So I was reading up on kaolin, and I saw that people were using it also to prevent this walnut shoot tip borer. And so last year I started spraying. I was spraying kaolin anyway on the apple trees, and I figured give it a try. And so last year we got our first walnut, and this year, look at them all.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
2, 3.
There's way more up there too.
There are dozens of them. So it's really interesting. I was about to give up on walnut trees, but
down there you can see the fire pond, which is there so that if the house gets set on fire, we can put it out.
You see the white nets? Those are little blueberry bushes. They're about 3 years old. So this is the first year we're having a little bit of a crop off them. And we put the nets over them because the birds and the chipmunks, the dang chipmunks, they leap into the air and grab the blueberries.
All right, back to the truck and onward.
All right, where are we going now?
North Orchard. All right, so North Orchard. Got some blackberries.
Those are raspberries.
Raspberries.
I planted this year, and they're starting to take off. I was a little disappointed in the quality of the plants we got because see this section? See all these plants that didn't root? 1, 2, 3, 4 didn't survive the but we got quite a few did. We'll have to order some more. And these posts, so we had some deer damage in here, so we're putting in these posts to put in some deer fencing around it, and then we'll also be able to put bird netting over it when we start having fruits, probably not next year, but the year after. This, so we cleared all this. This has been a garden that our old neighbors had, and it had grown up a great deal. So last year we cut a bunch of trees off it and pulled out all the stumps and pulled out the rocks. View the rocks. That's a lot of rocks, and we've already used a lot of them for repairing stone walls. I don't know what we're going to do with the rest of them. We may dig a big hole over there where it's so wet. Throw a bunch of the rocks in there, put the dirt back over, try to get it up like 8 inches or 10 inches so that, because right now you can't drive in and out of there when it's wet. So after we cleared it, we planted it with what's called a cover crop. So there's some oats in here. See these little guys? These are oats. This is a field pea. These are a radish. The radishes are important for improving the soil by putting a deep taproot in that, and then they'll rot, and you get a lot more soil life, mycorrhizal, funguses and molds and stuff growing in the soil. There are also some legumes. Oh, here's clover. This is a legume which will fix what they call fixed nitrogen to improve your soil nutrient level. You can see it's a little yellowish in here. My nephew Damon, your cousin, actually works for the Department of Agriculture, and his specialty is forage crops and improving pasture land and field production of hay and for animal feed. And he's suggesting I put add some nitrogen in here, because you see how it's yellower in here than it is over there. So there's more nutrient over there. One way to add nitrogen is with the animal bedding and manure. We have here composting. You typically let it sit for a year before you start applying it to a garden, because you want it to rot down, and it improves the you can what they call burn your crop by applying too much too concentrated nutrient. So by letting it rot, then it becomes a much slower release, so it doesn't burn your crop.
There's a lot of mosquitoes up here today.
Yep. So these are some old apple trees that our neighbors planted probably 45 years ago. One of these is what's called a russet. I think it's this one. So you see this apple has quite a bit of damage on it. Some of it's plum curculio damage. Some of it's apple scab. We don't care so much about the cosmetic quality of the fruit, because we're grinding it up to make juice for our brandy. But there's some more apples up here. We did a fairly heavy pruning on this because these trees had been really shaded out, and so there was a lot of dead, well, you see some of it here, dead wood on the bottom because it wasn't getting any light. Goodness, what was that?
That was a tree coming down.
That sounded like a tree coming down. And we didn't hear any sawing or cutting or anything. So.
Everything's so wet, it's probably really heavy.
Yeah. So we've got a lot more pruning to do on this year. We'll try to, you see these long, these were suckers that went up, shooting up, trying to get light when it was all shaded out. So we'll try to knock the top off a little bit and get the top down. You see this big one that went up? We cut that off this year. But you have to work slowly. You can't, if you cut the whole thing back to what you'd want it to be in 1 year, you'd probably kill the tree. See, here's another example of all those suckers shooting up out this way toward the south, toward the sun. It's a giant maple tree on that up there. That's not on our property. We wouldn't cut it down anyway. It's a beautiful tree.
Look, we've got some new suckers coming off this one though. I don't see them on the other one.
Yep, there's some new growth. That's good. We might take out, these are locust trees. So we might take some of these out. It's a fast growing tree. that is very rot resistant. So we can take these out and use them for posts for our pergola or our kiwi trellising.
Oh, do you?
We gotta hit some composting.
He's very proud of his compost.
But this is more locust. I was thinking I'm going to make an access road through here, but we should dig these up and transplant them. They're really useful for fence posts and trellis posts. So this is composting wood chips, which and you see the big hole we have in the top of it. So when we after we distill, we have waste product left in the still. And there's a lot of protein in it, and one of the best ways to use it and dispose of it is to compost it. So we do this, we mix it with wood chips and compost it here. The other thing we can do, sometimes we send it to feed the pigs, or they also use it for cattle feed. So we want to eventually, we've been working on this for a couple of years now. This is we'll be doing the composting in here. It's up here now because we were working on this. When we finish this, we'll push all the wood chips and stuff right into here, and then we'll do all the composting here in this bin. We've got to, the next project here is to put a concrete pad in the bottom of this so that we don't sink into the mud with the machinery.
Okay.
This is made out of granite that came out of a dam on the South Cook River, which is why it's all black. See all the staining from the minerals in the river water.
You're right.
Yep. Well, this is interesting. This is what they call a rangeway. So to get animals, livestock, usually sheep or cows, from one grazing pasture to another, they had these narrow alleyways, which had stone walls on both sides, so they could drive the animals from one field to another.
So you can see there's a stone wall here and a stone wall here. They're both a little bit grown up right now, but we don't have to drive cattle through them. So.
The spring, is that our next?
Yeah, the spring is our next stop. So this is a shaker mill pond.
Called the North Family Wood Mill Pond.
And this was a mill all here.
That was a sawmill for making lumber.
A porcupine lives down there now.
Yeah, more than one. So this is the spring where we get our water for proofing down our spirits. It's different than a deep well. It's what they call surface water. And it has much fewer minerals in it. So it's not like deep well water is usually hard water. This has a lot less minerals in it. It would be considered a soft water. And this was developed by the Shakers. You see the old stonework here. And if you can see down inside, it's lined with stone. It's like a shallow well. So they took a place where water was coming out of the ground and dug it out and lined it with stone. What else we got going here?
Another shaker pond over there.
Yep. That was called Chestnut Pond or Fountain Pond. It's called Chestnut because there were so many American chestnuts that grew around here before the chestnut blight. It was called Fountain Pond because the Shakers had a worshiping ground out here where they had what was called the fountain stone. which was part of their religious inspiration.
Cool. Well, that's pretty much it. That's the farm and the distillery. We'll do another actual distillery tour, but thank you so much for joining us. I hope you had a good time and learned a thing or two. And if you liked it, hit like and subscribe and share it with your friends. We do this most every other Tuesday when I'm not dropping the ball. But yeah, so check us out 2 Tuesdays from now. Thanks.